Personal finance practice problem using Excel. Present value of an annuity using monthly periods. Prepare to get financially fit by practicing personal finance. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet, would like to follow along, note that we're down here in the practice tab as opposed to the example tab. The example tab in essence being an answer key. Information on the left-hand side, going to populate that into the blue area on the right-hand side. The information says how much would have to invest to be able to take out each month $1,500 for 3 years. So for 3 years, we would like to take out monthly $1,500. The rate of return is going to be 12%. Now, note what we're looking for is a lump sum that we can then have that's going to be generating interest on it as it's in there, but then we're going to be pulling out $1,500 from it. So this is actually a present value type of a calculation of an annuity. So we're thinking of the annuity, which would be a series of payments of the $1,500 over the 3 years, but on a monthly basis. So we'd do this on a monthly process that we're taking out $1,500 each month, present value them to the starting point at this point in time, and then we can basically prove that with our running balance type of calculation. So in other words, the number of months that we're looking at is going to be the 3 times 12 or 36 months. So we want to be able to take out $1,500 for 36 months. Let's do our present value calculation. It will be the present value of an annuity type of calculation now. Slightly different. So we've seen these before. If you want to do this a little bit slower for a yearly present value, take a look at prior presentations. We're going to focus in on the new thing. So we'll say negative to flip the sign instead of equals. Present value, shift 9. The rate is going to be the 12%, but that rate is a yearly rate. And notice we generally assume that we're given the yearly rate unless told otherwise, even though we're going to be working with something that's going to be on a monthly basis. And that's generally what will happen. That's just the convention of how we use rates, because if I was to give monthly rates, oftentimes you would have a small, ugly looking rate, although this one would be 1%, 12% divided by 12 months, which is nice and even, which is why we picked it. But in practice, if it was like a 5% yearly rate, you could see the monthly rate would be kind of a problem. So we're going to divide that then by 12 in our calculation. That's the new thing, comma. Number of periods is not going to be 3 years, but if that was what we were given, we would be 3 times 12, or we've done that here. It's the 36 periods then, making sure that the periods matches the rate. And then comma, now we are doing an annuity, so we're looking at payment here. So the payments are going to be $1,500 and enter. That'll give us the $45,161. So the idea then being that if we had the lump sum of $45,161, then we should be able to take out $1,500 for 3 years, each month of those 3 years, or for 36 monthly periods, if we're earning a return on everything that's still in there at the 12% yearly rate, which would be 1% monthly rate. So let's do a running balance calculation to kind of prove that to ourselves now. I'm going to go ahead and hide some cells. I'm going to put my cursor on column C, drag on over to E, let go, and right click. Let's hide these cells. Right click. It doesn't want to, my right click isn't staying there. And then hide. Okay, so then we're going to say 0, 1, 2, and we're going to drag this all the way down to 36 periods, noting that we have more periods here, but if we're using Excel, not a problem. It should be okay. So we're going to put our cursor on the autofill handle, left click, drag it on down to 36 periods. Look how easy that is to do. And then we're going to go up top, home tab, alignment, and center that. It's just incredible. Just incredible the ease at which we could do that with the tools at our disposal. So then I'm going to call this the increase. This is the increase. And then, so I'm going to say the investment. I'm going to recalculate it again just to practice it. It's going to be negative, present value, shift 9, rate 12%. But then I got to divide that by 12 because I'm looking for the monthly rate, which would be 1%, comma, number of periods is not 3 years, but 3 times 12 or 36 periods because they're monthly periods, comma, the payment, $1,500 and enter. So there it is again, about $45,161. Let's go ahead and then calculate our increase. So whatever's still in the annuity would be the $45,161 times the rate of 12%. but that 12% is the yearly rate. So I got to divide that by 12. That's the tricky new thing. That's the tricky new twist. Note that when calculating that, you might do it this way: 45,161 times the 0.12 or 12%. That would be the interest for a year. That's what I would first do in a calculator if I had a paper and pencil usually, and then take that and divide it by 12. That would be the monthly amount about. Or you can basically take then the rate 0.12 divided by 12 to get the monthly rate 1%. Which is kind of what you do when you think about an Excel function, as we just saw usually, and then multiply that times the 45161, and you get about the same number. So let's go then we have a payment, so we're going to be taking out each time. I'm going to make this a negative by saying negative instead of equals and point to that 1,500. And then we had the prior investment equals the one above it, plus, and I'm going to say the sum of, using the trusty sum function, Shift 9, and I'm going to add these two together, summing them. That's what summing means, even though this one will basically subtract because it's a negative number, closing up the brackets. So the 45,161 plus the 452 minus the 1,500 gives us the 44,113. Let's do that a couple more times before we use the autofill to do it the easy way. We're taking now the 44,113 times the 12% down here, but that's the yearly rate, so we're going to divide it then by 12. That's the monthly amount. We got the same negative 1,500 we're taking out each month. So we're increasing or earning 100 or 441 each period, but we're taking out more than we're earning, of course, bringing down the investment amount, which means that our earnings are going to go down as we go on each period, although we still have earnings each time we compound. So this is going to be equal to the 44,113 about plus the SUM, Shift 9, left arrow, holding down Shift, left again, Shift 0, closing up the brackets, and enter. Let's do it two more times here. This equals the 45,54 times the 12%. That's the yearly rate, dividing that by 12 for the monthly amount. This is going to be the negative of the 1,500. I'm going to select Tab to go to the next cell. This equals the item above it plus the SUM, the sum, Shift 9, left arrow, holding down Shift, left again, closing up the brackets, Shift 0. Let's do it one more time. This equals the 45,985 times 12%. That's the yearly rate, divided by 12 to get to the monthly amount. Tab to go directly to the cell to the right. Negative to make it a negative number of the 1,500. This is going to equal the amount above 45,985 plus the SUM, Shift 9, left arrow, holding down Shift, left again, Shift 0, closing it up, and there we have it. Now let's do the whole thing again, but the easy way so we can autofill it down. So I'm going to delete what we've done thus far, selecting these items. No, don't delete. Yeah, oh my gosh, I can't believe you deleted it. That's okay. We'll do it again because we're going to do it the easy way this time. This is going to be equal to the 45,161 times the 12%. Now that 12% is outside of the table here, so we want to make it an absolute reference by selecting F4 on the keyboard, $ before the B and the 8. You only need a mixed reference, but an absolute reference is easy to think about. Then we're going to divide that by 12. That's what we call a hard-coded or typed-in number. That will also copy down as we autofill down. So this is going to be equal to the payment. I'm going to say negative of the payment. That payment also outside the table. Therefore, we want to make it absolute because we don't want it to move down when we copy down. So I'm going to select F4 on the keyboard, $ before the B and 4. Then this one's going to equal the 45,161 about plus the sum, SUM, Shift 9, left arrow, holding down Shift, left again, and Shift 0. And we'll close that up. Now, there's nothing here that's outside the table, so although this is our most complex formula, it's all within the table. I want it all to move down relative when we copy it down, so no absolutizing necessary. Let's go ahead and select these then, and we're just going to copy it all the way down, putting our cursor on the fill handle, dragging it down 36 periods, right on down. There we go, and the end result at 0, indicating that it looks like we did it correctly. So that's going to give us an indication. So that's basically what you'd want to do kind of in practice. Now let's do kind of the book problem types of things where we'll do with a formula and then we'll do it with the tables. So we're going to put our cursor on column F. Let's drag on over to J, let go, right click, and let's hide those cells. Let's hide those cells. My right click It keeps doing something funny like that. I want to hide those. Cells. Okay, so then we're going to do this. You could do this and just plug it into the formula down here, which is kind of an ugly formula. So it would be the present value of an annuity equals the payment, which would be the 1,500 times 1 minus 1 over 1 plus R, which is going to be the 12% divided by 12, or 1%, to the number of periods, which would be 3 times 12, 3 years times 12, or 36 periods. Those are the new things. That's why I'm saying it kind of emphasis-like, with an emphasis on it, because that's the new thing from the light. So that's the new stuff. So the 36 periods divided by R, which is the rate, which is 12 divided by 12 months, or 1%. So let's put that into our formula as we've done in the top, making a table out of it, because that's always good times, and then we'll emphasize the new stuff again in our table. So this isn't new stuff. This is the same stuff, that 1,500, but making sure that's our monthly amount, though. And then we have the numerator, and I'm going to put the calculation of 1 here, which is that 1 right there. And then I'm going to call this numerator 2, numerator 2, which I'm just going to put 1 here, and that's going to be this 1 right there. And then we're going to put this as the denominator of 1 plus R, shift 9, shift 6, caret to the end, periods, colon, because we're pulling out to the inside. 1 is going to be here. The rate is going to be R right there. Here's the new thing. Here's where the new thing happens. It's going to be equal to the 12%, but that's the yearly rate divided by 12. And so let's percentify that by going to the Home tab, Number Group, Percentify. So it's 1%. That's why we made it nice and even again here with the 12% yearly rate. Obviously, if it was something like 5% or something, we'd have some small, less than 1 decimal monthly percent, which is okay for Excel, but can be a little confusing to discuss and talk about. Then we're going to go to the Home tab up top, Font Group, and Underline. This is going to be what we'll call our subtotal, a subtotal, which is going to be equal to the SUM, the sum of these two items. And we'll make that into a percent. Home tab number, Percentify. We're at the 101%. We're going to take that to the number of periods. We're down here at the number of periods now. That's going to be to the number of periods, which is N in our calculation, which was 36. This is new, not 3 years, 36 months. 36 months for 3 years. And we're going to go to the Home tab, Fonts Group, Underline. And then that's going to give us then our 36. That'll give us our total here, which was the 1 plus R, shift 9 to the N, but without the colon, because this is the end result, which we're going to bring into the outer column, which will be then the 101%, shift 6, caret to the 36 periods, and that gives us 1, which we're going to add some decimals to. Home tab number, decimalized. It's been decimalized. So there we have that. And so let's do some indentations here. Let's go ahead and indent this whole thing. Home tab, alignment, indent. And then let's indent this thing by going Home tab, alignment, indent. And then let's indent this and go Home tab, alignment, indent. That looks way better. That looks way better. So then this is going to be the numerator. And then I'm going to say this is a subtotal. So subtotal. And we'll bring this to the outside. And so now we're going to go ahead and divide this out. This is going to be then the 1 over that decimalized number. We're going to add decimals to it by going to the Home tab, Numbers. We're going to decimalize that one. Let's bring that one out too. So I'm going to indent that Home tab, alignment, and indent that all the way out here. I'm going to underline this number, Font Group, and Underline. And now we've got the numerator, so the end of the numerator, which is now going to be 1 minus this whole thing, represented in this column, 1 minus that whole thing. Let's underline here, Home tab, Font, and Underline. This is going to be equal to the 1 minus the decimalized number, adding decimals to it, Home tab, number, decimalizing it. And then we're going to have the denominator, which is going to be the rate. And that's simply going to be equal to the 12, but that's the yearly rate, so we got to divide it by 12 to get the monthly rate, or 1%. Home tab, numbers, percentifying to that 1%, underlining it by going to the font group and underline. That's going to give us another, we'll call it a subtote, bringing that to the outer column, and that'll be this whole piece here now. So we're gonna divide this out. This equals the numerator divided by the denominator, which is going to be 30 about. Let's add some decimals. Home tab, number, decimalized. And then we're going to say that's finally going to give us to the present value of the annuity at the bottom of the line, the bottom line, which is going to be these two things multiplied together, which are represented in the outer column here. That's the 1,500 times the 30.107 and so on. Let's add a couple pennies here by going to the home tab, number, a couple pennies. We're at the 45,161.26. Let's put an underline here while we are at it. Home tab, font group, underline. So there we have that again. Now let's do it with the tables. So let's go ahead and hide some cells here from K on over to P, K to P, right click, and let's hide those cells. Don't delete them, just hiding them. And then we're going to say this is going to be the payment, and this is going to be equal to the 1,500. Now, when using the tables, note the limitations of the tables. We had to limit it to kind of 3 years to make sure that we had 36 periods. If you go much over that, you're going to have limitations on how many periods are in the table. And we picked a nice even 12%, because if you divide that by 12, you get 1%. So in other words, when you look at the table, the percents in our past problems have been always the percent per year because our periods were yearly periods. But if you have something other than yearly periods, like months, then the periods represent months now instead of years, and you have to have the matching percent up top, which means that if you're given a yearly percent, and if it's a small yearly percent, like 2% a year, then the monthly percent, you got to divide that by 12. You're not going to be able to use the table. We used 12% because if that's a yearly percent and you divide it by 12, you can have the monthly percent, which is 1% in this case. We used 36 or 3 years, which adds up to 36 periods, because if you use something like 5 years, you're going to be at 60 periods, and again, you're limited to the table. So just note the limitations of the table. Those are limitations in a school kind of setup if they're going to force you to use tables. In a setup where when you're not forced to use tables, you're not limited by them because you're simply going to use a calculator or Excel to do the calculation. So we got the 30.108. So this will be 30.108, adding some decimals. And we're going to say home tab, number, adding a couple decimals. Let me double check that. This was at 36 and 1, 30.108. 30.108, that's right. So then let's multiply this out. This is going to be 1,500 times the 30.108. And so there we have it. Let's say this is from the table. This is the present value of annuity. Underline it here. Home tab, font group, underline. Let's add a couple decimals to note the rounding. Notice that this is rounded to 3 to 4 digits here, typically from the table. Let's go ahead and unhide some cells now. Putting our cursor on column B, dragging over to R, let go, right click on the selected items, and then unhide. So now if I add a couple decimals here, home tab, numbers, we got the 45,161.26. We got that with our running balance, and then we kind of proved it by going down to 0. And then we've got the same thing here, the 45,161.26 here. And then with the table, we got the 45,162, slightly different due to the rounded of 4 digits. If you were to see the actual number, it would be closer to this that we saw when we did our mathematical calculation. That difference is due to the rounding from the tables.